Thanks for listening to this Word in Your Ear podcast. If you'd like to get early access to all our productions ad-free, priority booking for our live events, and to take part in our weekly quiz, go to patreon.com/wordinyourear for more details.
Word down your way. Testing 2, 2.
Well, welcome to another edition of Word Down Your Way. Another musician about to go out on tour and remembering the first and the best shows that they've seen and played. And it's the great Guy Garvey. Guy, lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me. Lovely to see you.
And you're in a car. What were you saying? You're outside your personal trainers? No, what is it? Are you therefore glowing, having done some kind of workout or what?
I hit 50 next month, and I thought it was time I started doing something other than what I please.
Yeah.
So I go and see a wonderful chap called Sam a few times a week, and he puts me through my paces.
So it's not a Mick Jagger type pre-tour routine where he, goes through incredible levels of athletic endeavour. It's not quite that yet.
We opened for the Stones in Cardiff a few years ago, and yeah, he put us all to bed. We couldn't believe it. The whole crowd was tired with dancing, and Mick was still going. So no, it's not like that. I'm still not divorced Guinness, and it's just I'm trying to get a little bit of balance. But the tour was definitely one of the reasons I started. Yeah.
Right. Now, can you remember the first live show you ever went to as a child? Any kind of live show?
Well, live show. It was a pantomime.
It nearly always is. Excellent.
Yeah. Featuring the Grumbleweeds.
Oh, this is fun. David and I talk about this a lot. Mine was Cilla Black and Mr. Pastry. The Grumbleweeds. That's superb.
Yeah, that's a very vague memory.
Yeah.
The first rock concert I went to was actually a TV event for Granada TV that Tony Wilson put together when I was about 16, and 3 bands on the bill, 1 song each. So it wasn't a real gig. It was just a TV recording. But it was the New Fads, the High, and the Charlatans.
Oh, right. Wow.
How old were you? Can you remember?
About 16. It wasn't long. In fact, no, I'd have been younger than that. I must have been 14. But I definitely got the bug a little bit there.
Right.
So it must have been thrilling being in Manchester, because you were in Bury, weren't you? And all the stuff that was going on at that time. There'd been Joy Division, New Order, and the Smiths would have happened when you would have been about what? I can't work it out now. 14, 10, 13. Maybe 10? Yeah.
And then the stuff that really resonated with me when I started getting into music other than the music my 5 sisters would play at home, it was the Stone Roses and the Happy Mondays and that era, and to be in the epicenter of all of that scene was quite special. I joined the band around that time as well.
But just going back to your sisters, that's really interesting. You got 5 elder sisters, haven't you? So
yeah,
that presumably gave you access to all sorts of music that some of your mates would never have heard of. Did you develop a kind of sophisticated taste?
Completely. So like Gina was soul and Motown and things. Karen was pop of the day, but from the sort of fun end. So she loved Elton John, was her favourite. Sam was punk. And my sister Becky is folk / progressive rock and experimental and out there stuff.
Wow, so all bases covered.
Yeah. And all arguing over the same hi-fi.
Right.
Fantastic.
So you were the first male child. So you were number 6, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Did you get spoiled terribly?
Yes. I mean, luckily, I got a brother very quickly on my heels, 2 years younger than me. So we shared the fiefdom between us. But yeah, spoiled rotten.
So can you remember the first time you went on stage yourself with the band?
Discounting being an altar boy, I think that was my first stage. Something had to break the monotony of Sunday's church. The first time I went on stage with the band is the band I'm in.
Yeah. What were you called? We called Mr. Soft, weren't you? Is that right?
That's right. After the Steve Harley Cockney Rebel song.
So was Cockney Rebel a big thing for you then?
No, it was at the time. It was used for the Soft Mints advert.
Yes,
it was. Yes,
it
of
was.
course.
And Mark from the band, who invited me to join, did a very good impression of this wobbly walk from the advert. So that's where we got the name. Yeah.
So when you've looked around on stage over the years, you've been looking at the same people.
Yeah, with the exception of our drummer, our original drummer, Richard Juck, left after 25 years. So, you can hardly call him a fly-by-night. And these days, Alex Reeves is our drummer. But aside from that, it's me, the Potter Brothers, and Pete Turner. Yeah.
Does that must make a difference?
Years.
I suppose it's very difficult to kind of, you've never experienced the opposite. But they all say George Harrison found it terrifying going on stage at concert for Bangladesh because he wasn't looking over and seeing John Lennon and Paul McCartney, because that's what you're used to.
It is very, very strange. I've done shows with other artists. I used to regularly walk on with I Am Clute. I've done a show with 808 State when I co-wrote a song with them, and various other things down the years. I always feel like, is that it? Walking on and, doing a kind of Jules Holland, Lionel Blair kind of, hi, bye, I'm always like, oh, can't really get my teeth into that.
Right.
But it's a wonderful thing to look at the same blokes. I mean, we've said it over and over again. I think the secret to us staying together is obviously we love exploring music together. And also we find sleep deprivation extremely funny. I mean, that's really lucky, that all of us do. And actually, as we hit middle age, they're all their loveliest, gentlest selves, They've all sort of settled into their loveliest sort of selves, which doesn't always happen, does it? Some blokes approaching 50 get really grousy and grumpy.
We were talking to Sid. We're talking to Sid Griffin. I think it was in the Long Riders, God knows how long ago, 40 years ago, or whatever. And they're reformed recently, being on tour. And it's like a second lease of life in their late 60s and 70s or whatever. They kind of and also they're escaping from home responsibilities and so forth.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of last of the summer wine about it.
Oh, they've obviously gone back to being teenagers when they're together, aren't they? Very exciting. Yeah. Can you remember with Mr. Stuff, can you remember the kind of things, did you do any cover versions or anything in the early days?
Oh, yeah. So when I left school, just before meeting the band, I wanted to be in a Santana covers band. Not playing the guitar, I'm not sure why. I just loved their music. I wanted to be in a band that could cover Santana, and we did.
I'm surprised by that. I don't know why.
I think it was because the early Santana, before it sort of got too slick in the 80s, like Abraxas and that era.
Yeah, they're great records.
And it's every player in the band is amazing in their own right. I think that's what it is. They're musicians. So and Mark had a Gibson SG on account of Carlos's first guitar, and of course Angus Young because he's a DC fan. But we used to watch the Woodstock footage of Santana over and over again, and
when none of them's over the age of 22, isn't that right? They're all six of them are under 22. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think maybe that was part of it as well, and we knew that all the stories of them coming up on mezcal or acid or whatever they were on, but it's like you could pinpoint the member of the band you wanted to be, Pete Turner wanted to be David Brown, Rick Jupp wanted to be Mickey Shreve, and Mark wanted to be Carlos.
Yeah,
very good.
So we also covered very early doors. We covered a U2 song, "Running to Standstill."
All right.
And then we did a really weird one. Did you remember those compilation horror films with Peter Cushing quite often? Like where you've got 4 stories within one movie.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, there was one called Dr. Terror's House of Horror where Roy Castle steals a voodoo tune while on holiday and comes back and reappropriates this voodoo ritual tune with his band in a jazz club. And it's so cool. It's the version they do of this tune is really cool. and then a great wind blows everybody away. And of course, the terrible, unimaginable, terrible ending, the fate of Roy Castle, is that there's a black man in his wardrobe. You know, this is how the thing finishes. Very, very of its era. Some very old politics going on. But this tune that they steal, we reappropriated it and gave it a Latin swing and called it King Castle.
That's brilliant.
That was a really early instrumental that we loved.
That's fantastic.
So what are the plans for this tour? What's this one all about?
This album's... it's the first time that Al Reeves, our drummer, has been in the writing process from the beginning. I mean, Craig always wrote beats with Jupp in the past, with our old drummer. And for the past 3 albums, he's done the same thing again with Al, or we all have, actually. But then this time, Al's been on the ground floor. So it's been very much a band in a room, cranking out these odd little jams and then fleshing them into songs, which is, of course, the way that we started. That's how we used to do it. And then as the years have gone by, and I think probably we owe our longevity to this as well, we've chopped up the way we work. We've worked in 2s and 3s, or we've decided to have different days off. So there's different dynamics. We've been very conscious of not repeating a process for years, actually, to keep the whole thing fresh and to keep the music moving. And then, so yeah, the energy that Al brings, not just with his playing, but with his personality, because you can imagine after 30 odd years, you forget to tell each other stuff that you need to hear. And you know, and Al will perhaps encourage somebody who's less forthcoming with his ideas, and I'll clock him doing it and think, I forget to do that. Yeah. So he brings a freshness to the dynamic and an enthusiasm to the whole thing, which is, and also this time, Craig, who our keyboardist Craig Potter, produces all of our records and has done for the past 9 albums, and he brought up the word fun. And he gave me a piece of music I really didn't understand. I was like, where's this coming from? Where do you want it to go? And he said, I just thought it was fun. And I looked around the room and everybody was kind of looking at each other like, oh, fun, yeah.
I remember fun.
Yeah, I remember fun, yeah. So the tour is going to probably reflect that as well. It's a dark album. It's got some dark humour in it.
What are you most pleased with about it?
I think it's got like, it feels from the hip. A lot of our music is very, very considered and very hewn and very worked and very architectural in its feel, or super, super subtle. Our last record was so incredibly subtle. It's actually the one we're all proudest of, but it came and it went because of the bottleneck after COVID. We couldn't get column inches, we couldn't get radio play. So now it's this very lovely lost thing called Flying Dream 1. And this was necessarily a pendulum swing to the other side. So it's fun. It's got, as I say, it's from the hip. It's got some swagger to it. I'm going places lyrically I've perhaps not been before.
So how do you approach when you're planning a tour nowadays, and you got loads of tunes that people want to hear from the past, but also you want to play your new record? Do you have a kind of scientific way of working that out? Do you start with familiar things, or do you start with unfamiliar things? Or how do you do that?
We normally look at a random old set list, and then we look at the last set list we did, and then we choose which songs we want to be able to play from the new record, and all of them have how long the songs are written after them. And then Mark Potter is the king of the list. Pot goes in heavy. He'll spend a long time drinking whiskey in his little bar that he's built in his house, and trying different combinations of songs. And then he'll present us with what he thinks is the best set list. And then you kind of quibble. There's always some songs that, I want to play and other people don't, and vice versa. And then the horse trading begins.
Right.
It doesn't. It used to be volcanic. It used to be really fierce. But these days, there's like it's quite amusing. It's kind of like, okay, well, we'll do that on the Wednesday if you give me that on the Friday.
Oh, I see.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So if you're doing new stuff, do you find it best to do them together or to sprinkle them?
Well, to be honest, it was a consideration in writing the album to make these songs a bit punchier so that you could throw a few more than normal in a set without, confronting people with too much stuff they didn't know.
Because the danger is if you announce you're doing a couple of new ones, people think, a couple? I've got time to go and get a drink and make a telephone call. So
exactly.
it does. The Stones always say no. When Mick Jagger said Keith's going to do a couple now, there'd just be an exodus, Disaster.
Yeah, I've seen it happen, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I think probably the best thing to do with new material is not announce it.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think we're pushing for 4 new ones in a set of 18 songs.
Right. Okay. Well, that's yeah.
So
that's not asking too much of anybody, is it?
No, totally.
It's not like Neil Young doing the whole of was that record Greenville or whatever? He played the whole thing, didn't he, Mark? When you went to that,
the entire album, an entire album that no one had heard a note of. With a special thing that you weren't allowed to go to the bar. The bar wasn't allowed to serve drinks during it to make sure people stayed in their seats. That's the wrong way to do it.
That's the wrong way.
That is totally the wrong way to do it. I've been to shows. I went to see what's his name? He goes out under smog. Bill Callahan.
Right.
Bill Callahan played the whole of A River Ain't Too Much to Love in a little basement venue called the Roadhouse in Manchester, and told everyone he was going to do it, and played it start to finish, and then did the hits. And like at the time, I was like, Jesus, man, come on. But I have to say, now that I love that record so much, it's my favourite that he's done. Right. I'm quite glad that I saw it in full.
Yeah. No, sure.
So we must ask you, greatest show you've ever seen. I mean, immortal moment.
McCartney at Glastonbury was pretty good.
Oh, wow.
The first time he did it, it was pretty amazing. And I think also it's because by then he'd become this sort of Partridge-esque figure in British culture, and he was known for kind of gently putting his foot in it every now and again. And so I think the weight of expectation wasn't there. And then when he came on, it's just the song spoke. Everybody knew every word.
This is
and of course, and also it was really generous. And and also it was totally live for the nerds among us. There was no trickery. It was an amazing live band, and it was mixed beautifully. And then he said at one point, the BBC cameras have gone off now, so this is just for us. And he went into Live and Let Die with fireworks.
Fantastic.
He really captured the crowd. And he played song after song after song. And it was almost like everybody who was there would say the same thing. That was just unbelievable. Yeah.
It's brilliant to be in that position, isn't it? You do 20 huge hits, and there's still 10 that people have forgotten about that you haven't played or whatever. Chuck them in as bonuses. It's astonishing.
And then just to try and present myself as cool, I saw Little Simz do an after-show performance when she won the Mercury a couple of years ago. I went to an after party and I was privileged to be in the room. She invited all the other nominees to this club, and it was impossible to get a drink. And I felt old. I was probably the oldest person there. And then she got up and did a few numbers, and the atmosphere, it's like you couldn't have put something together like that for a movie. I felt so privileged to be there. Right. And she's so effortlessly cool, and she's such an amazing poet. So that was probably my other favourite. That was really something.
There's a question I want to ask you, because you faced a lot of crowds.
Yeah.
And, so you've had experience of entertainment, and what works and what doesn't. If you were at, let's say, a family wedding, but they didn't know you were Guy Garvey out of Elbow, but they knew you played a tune, and they said, give you a guitar, give us a song, what would you do? If you could just, what would you do?
That's good. You mean any song, right? Dave?
Anything. You can do anything.
So you could do, Come On Eileen.
Anything.
Crazy in Love.
My guitar skills are limited to elbow songs. I can only play on my own one elbow song. which is a newborn off the first album. It's kind of like, I worked out what I wanted to play finger-wise. I still don't know the names of my strings. And then other than that, I've written a lot of guitar solos, which I've then learned to play. I'll write them by singing them, because I believe that the best guitar solos are the ones you can sing. And then, yes, I'll learn how to play it. So I'd be absolutely screwed.
Really? So you don't know the names of the strings?
No.
Wow.
And all my tunings...
Again, I think I do, but anyway, go on.
All my tunings are open as well.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a real cheat.
That's cheating, I was going to say. That's, yeah. So much to learn.
So what can people look forward to, apart from what you've already told us in your upcoming tour? Are there going to be any surprises? Is there guests or anything like that? Anything going to be happening like that?
Well, possibly. We haven't put the fine details in, but we've done a few duets down the years. Jessica Hoop is a regular appearance on our records. I've duetted with Richard Hawley on a song called The Fix, and with John Grant on a song called Kindling. So they often rock up, but I'm not sure who's going to turn up just yet. Other than that, we're sort of messing around with how we're going to fill these arenas. It's a while since we've done arenas, and filling it with people flatteringly isn't a problem, but it's how we reach the back of the room.
Do you mean the kind of stagecraft? Do you mean the show itself?
Yeah.
What's your answer to that?
Well, the first time we had to do it, we had fewer big numbers than we've got now. We had a lot more subtler material, and we had to consider that. We put a lighting truss down the centre of the room, and we put speakers all the way around the room. And then we had a vanity thrust, as it's called in the rock world.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a great one. I've never heard that expression.
It's
Is that the little lip of the stage that comes out at the front?
Yes, yeah, like a runway.
Like a diving board thing, yeah.
Yeah, but it went to a B stage in the centre of the arena. And my vanity thrust actually went down into the crowd, so that when I was halfway along it, I was only head and shoulders above them. And that meant I could talk to them between songs and things like that. And then the band did some of the show from the B stage, and we put an enormous chandelier above the B stage. So we gave the room a centre. The other thing is, I've been to shows at arenas by really big bands. I'm not going to name any names here because this is quite an insult, where they've not put enough rigging, they've not put enough speakers in, essentially. In this day and age, with the technology that is completely basic and that everybody uses now, there's a system called Array, where you just add the right amount of speakers for the space you're in. There's no excuse for bad sound in any shape or size of environment or room. If you go to a show and it sounds bad, it means they've not spent enough money on speakers. They're not serving the public in the right way. So, people go, oh, I went to this and that arena, the sound is awful. You say, well, then the band were cheap,
I'm sure that's true.
I'm sure. I'm
Vanity Thrust. I think I knew the former bass player from Vanity Thrust. That's fantastic. 3 more from them after the news. That's so good.
So do you go into, prior to going on tour, do you go into a big rehearsal space to map it all out?
Yeah, so we've been rehearsing already in Manchester this last couple of weeks. And once we've got it all right, everything we're going to use in the arena, our lighting director, Kate Carter, who's a bit of a legend, we'll go and find a hangar somewhere and we'll put the show together in there. It's a remarkable thing.
Yeah. Do you do that thing that Bruce Springsteen used to do, where which is it walks around the back of the arena listening to the band, still playing, and he can hear what it sounds like at the back of the place? Do you do any of that?
I do go for a walk. Yes, the privilege of my position is that I can go and have a listen to how it's sounding.
Yeah,
And actually, our sound engineer Danny Evans, who's been with us for a couple of decades, and when I go out to have a listen to what's going on, he'll solo the various backing vocals of the rest of the band for my entertainment.
Such attention to detail. That's brilliant.
So you're also doing a thing with Radio 2, is that right?
Yes, we're doing the piano room, which means we get to play once again with the BBC Concert Orchestra.
Fantastic.
We did a show with them in 2008 where we played the whole of The Seldom Seen Kid, which is our biggest record. And it was on the red button, and the country was snowed in, and it doubled our audience permanently. Totally. But it was also one of the most enjoyable performances we've ever given. It was because of the way orchestras are paid. We'd had no room for error. We had to play it perfectly, pretty much. So it was nerve-wracking.
I bet. So with an orchestra, is it right when they go rehearse, they go, okay, bar 32, and you just start there kind of thing, rather than start at the beginning? Is that right?
Well, yeah, because they do necessarily have somebody from the musicians union telling them when to stop on the beat, you know. Yeah. Because if it's a piece of Wagner, you know, they can miss the tea break by 2 days. You know? So, I have to say that the musicians union are wonderful for classical music. Total fucking chocolate teapot for the rest of us.
Guy,
do you get nervous in those situations with a load of classical musicians? The idea that they might find out that you don't know the names of the guitar strings.
No, I lead with my inadequacies. I tell them straight away.
Fair enough.
Refer to them constantly as proper musicians.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Guy, it's been wonderful to talk to you. And
you're still doing the Six Music Show, aren't you?
Yeah, every Sunday. They gave me an extra hour, flatteringly. So it's now 3 hours long from 1 till 4. And my wife has done some of my idents, including one that says in her beautiful, smoky, posh voice, Guy Garvey's finest hour. 1 hour too long. But yeah, I'm
That's
still
great.
enjoying that.
Yeah,
Well,
that's really good.
it's a pleasure to be able to sign off in the time-honored fashion. Guy Garvey, good luck with the tour.
Word down your way. Testing 2, 2.